And likely one of the most damning statements made by Reffitt was, quote, "I wouldn't stop and I won't stop ever." That tells you now his future intention. And then he implicated himself even further in tax fraud, because in this recording with his son, and I don't know if his other family members, but definitely with his son, he says something about how he doesn't pay taxes. And then he doubles down on his belief that he committed no crimes, because his son said to him, quote, "You carried a weapon onto federal grounds." And then Reffitt replies, quote, "What part of that is breaking the law? I carried a weapon onto federal grounds that we own." So again, another confirmation that he carried a weapon onto federal grounds, and he doesn't think that that's a problem. I mean, the ignorance of these people. Oh, but I'm going to go cosplay as a militia member, even though I don't understand the laws. But he just keeps digging this hole deeper and deeper. How many confirmations is that he had a weapon? And then he says, quote, "You'll know that your father was there when an epic historical thing happened in this country. And guess what? I'm not done yet." So again, he is telling the jury, I'm going to keep going. If you let me walk, I am going to continue with this violent behavior. Again, very damning. It shows a complete lack of remorse, because this was after the Capitol attack. No contrition for the violence that day. Well, on cross-examination, Reffitt's attorney alluded to mental illness as an excuse for Reffitt's actions. He was able to get Reffitt's son to confirm that his father drinks alcohol frequently, and that he also takes Xanax, which is a prescription used for anxiety. And I think people with anxiety disorder would find it insulting to say, oh, they have a mental illness. Anxiety is not a mental illness that would make you act out violently. But then his defense attorney tried to plant the idea with the jury of deep fake videos. So he didn't flat out say it, but he started questioning an FBI agent that was on the stand who had examined Reffitt's devices. And the FBI agent said, that's not what I was looking for. And no, I don't believe that these were deep fakes. Next, Rocky Hardy, who traveled with him to DC, testified. So this was a former fellow 3%er militia member. He told the jury that they wore holsters that day. He said that his was around his shoulder, that Reffitt wore his on his hip. And he said that those holsters were filled with loaded guns and that they did take them and wear them to the Capitol. He also said that they had assault rifles, but they left those in the back of the vehicle in case, quote, something bad happened and they needed to get them quickly. And he admitted that he knew it was illegal to bring the weapons to DC, but he said that they both basically agreed, quote, "It's better to be tried by a jury of 12 than carried out by 6. Well, we'll see. So Hardy also said that they took radios, they took body armor to DC. And then on the morning of January 6th, Reffitt, he said, handed him a pair of flexi cuffs in case they, quote, needed to detain anyone. So these are these plastic handcuffs that police use. And Reffitt had them and he brought them with him and he gave some to this other guy and said, oh, if we want to detain anybody, here you go. Now, Hardy claims that their main concern was, quote, violence from these violent groups like Antifa. He told the jury, quote, "The idea was if these people were hunting other human beings, then we would use ARs against them." Really? Because Antifa hunts other human beings. Yeah, anti-fascists hunt other human beings, a lot of whom that, the right makes fun of and says that they're vegan. So they're going to hunt humans when they don't even eat animals. Really? And yet there's no evidence whatsoever, not one shred of evidence that anyone from Antifa was in attendance that day. But you were, Reffitt and Hardy, you guys were there with multiple weapons. Anyway, like Reffitt, Hardy didn't actually enter the building on January 6th. Neither one of them entered the Capitol. But they did enter the Capitol grounds, like the restricted area, with their unregistered weapons. And Hardy said that the two men got separated as they were walking from Trump's rally down to the Capitol. And then they didn't see each other until they met back up at the hotel like hours later. But he said when they got there, Reffitt was boasting about what he had done that day. He said Reffitt's face was red, probably from the pepper spray. And he said that he showed Hardy all of his bruises, that he had bruises up and down his legs, and that he talked about how he was hit with a ton of pepper balls, and that he was yelling for the mob to keep pushing. And in regard to the female officer that I mentioned earlier, who was shooting the rounds at him, Reffitt told Hardy that he said to her, quote, "Lady, I don't want to hurt you, but every time you shoot me, I'm going to keep moving forward." So again, exactly what they've been saying. Had he not been stopped by the chemical irritant that they sprayed at him, God knows what he would have done to her. But, possibly even more damning testimony came from Hardy when he was trying to be nice. And it goes to Reffitt's intent and the result of his actions that day. So once they were back at the hotel, Reffitt allegedly told Hardy that he didn't make it into the building because he was hit with chemical spray, but he apparently said, quote, "I made it possible for other people to continue." That's the prosecutor's case. They argue that although Reffitt didn't physically harm anyone or enter the building, he made it possible for others to do so. And then Hardy also explained how the men met. He detailed how they have a mutual hatred of the government, especially Nancy Pelosi. He admitted that he still believes the election was stolen. And then Hardy described Trump's loss as a, quote, catastrophic event. And he said that the 3%ers group, their chat that they had, it took on, quote, an apocalyptic tone after the 2020 election. Hardy also admitted that their intention in going to the Capitol was to stop the certification of the election. He admitted that. And Hardy confirmed that following the detainment of the Texas leader of the 3%ers, Reffitt sent a message to other 3%ers in the state, and he told them to delete evidence. Now, that's not a crime that he was charged with. Why, I don't know. Reffitt allegedly wrote to them, quote, "Start purge of all previous conversations." Now, the other bit of damning testimony given by Hardy, again, comes in the form of a compliment to Reffitt. Hardy told the jury, "In life, most people talk, but they don't do. He seems to be a person that actually does things and gets things done." I just imagine that Reffitt's attorney wanted to scream at that point, and he wanted to run out of the court and just never come back. So instead, he did what he could do. He got up there and he started questioning Hardy about his cooperation agreement with the feds. So obviously trying to cast doubt on the legitimacy of his testimony because he's been given full immunity for his testimony. And prosecutors said, our case will probably be done. They're almost through with all of their witnesses. So they said they expect this to end by the early part of this week. And the judge, which unfortunately is Trump appointee, Dabney Friedrich, she has said that she expects the case to go to the jury for deliberation by the middle of this week. I don't see how this guy gets a pass. I don't see how he gets a pass on all counts, unless, as I've said before, if there's one election denier, one MAGA holdout on the jury, and it's a hung jury, that's the only way. But based on the evidence, based on the testimony, based on his own words on audio recording, his own actions on video, his own written words, how do you deny that this guy did the things that they're accusing him of? So, and I am irritated with this judge. As I've said before, in these January 6 cases, she has been a complete joke. She has let them off, baked them a cake practically. But she's trying to hurry this up. She's like, oh, you need to wrap this up. This is going too long. This is a man's life. I think he belongs in jail for a period of time, but he needs a fair trial, and you can't rush these things along. Anyway, guys, I will let you know as I hear more. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care. I'll talk with you soon.